What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Classic Chronicles. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody, man. As I'm recording this, it is Thanksgiving Day. I hope you are enjoying all the Thanksgiving and traditions, the turkey, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes, the chicken, whatever you guys do, enjoying football, you know, and just enjoying time with your loved ones and staying safe and all that good stuff. Uh, yeah, so for today, rather than do a traditional Thanksgiving vlog and list everything that I'm thankful for, like I've done in the past, uh, I thought I would give you my top 10 favorite matches from a Thanksgiving tradition of sorts. And that is the WWE Survivor Series. Now, the Survivor Series began in 1987. The first two were held at the Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia. Uh, but yeah, so I'm not gonna give you them in any particular order here. I'm just going to list off some of my favorite top 10, my some of my favorite Survivor Series matches, and let's just get going, man. So for my first one, I'm going to go with Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund from Survivor Series 1994. Now, this was a submission match for the WWE Championship. Bret Hart had been champion, coming off the feud with Owen Hart. He had coming off the feud with his brother Owen Hart, I should say. And he was a dominant champion, kind of the workhorse, the measuring stick of the company. Um, and uh, and yeah, so he just, like, what do you call it? So now then he ran into Bob Backlund, who had held the WWE Championship for a record 3 years, 20 years prior to this. So back in back in 21 years prior to this, back in 1973, Bob Backlund held the championship the WWF championship for a record for a record 3 years, and what do you call it? Just dominated the competition back then, and then the title was taken from him by the Iron Sheik, and then the Iron Sheik went on to lose it to Hulk Hogan. But the submission match was very, very good. In Bret Hart's corner you had the British Bulldog, and then in Bob Backlund's corner you had Owen Hart. Uh, and rather than say I quit, when the winner was to be crowned, the cornerman threw the towel in, and this is, if you watch the match, you remember it famously that Bob Backlund had Bret Hart in the crossface chicken wing, which is Bob's patented submission for like maybe 5 to 6 minutes, and that is a painful hold to be in for just 30 seconds. I can't imagine 5 to 6 minutes, but anyway, Bob Backlund ended up winning the title that night, and but ended up losing it just a couple of weeks later at Madison Square Garden to Diesel, aka Kevin Nash, in a record 9 seconds. But anyway, so yeah. Okay, that's the first one. So my next one is from Survivor Series. Is from Survivor Series 1993. And it is the Hart family versus Shawn Michaels Knights. Now, like, you may say, why are you picking this one if you know wrestling history? But the reason why I'm picking this is because it is it is essentially the beginning of one of my favorite feuds of all time, and that involves Owen Hart versus Bret Hart, which is what I just mentioned before. But this is the beginning of that feud. So they would things would kind of break down at Survivor Series 1993. Then in January of '94 at the Royal Rumble. Um, at the Royal Rumble, Bret and Owen tried to patch things up, but Owen ended up turning on Bret and then went on to defeat him at WrestleMania. And then they had another classic cage match at WWE SummerSlam. Uh, so yeah, that it was just a great feud. And so the reason why things started to break down at this particular pay per view was because all every Hart member was the sole survivor except Owen Hart. Owen Hart was the only one eliminated during the match, and he feels that Bret Hart kind of caused his elimination, but it wasn't Bret's fault. Shawn Michaels kind of shoved Bret into Owen, uh, causing Bret to fall off the apron where he was standing, and just get cause Shawn Michaels to get the pin on Owen Hart. So Owen felt that Bret caused it, and that's where the rift kind of started. Um, yeah. So anyway, very very entertaining match. Ray Combs, the host of Family Feud at the time, was the guest ring announcer. It was hilarious. He was making fun of Shawn Michaels and his team members as they made their way down to the ring. Uh, and yeah, no, so that's another one of my favorite matches. Not necessarily for the match itself, but for the entertainment value. Um, and next up on my list, we're up to number three. Would be Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart from the 1996 Survivor Series. So this Survivor Series was at Madison Square Garden, and this even though it may not be necessarily be remembered solely for the matchup against for the match with Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, it would I believe, in my opinion, that was overshadowed by the debut of The Rock, Rocky Maivia that night. That was the same night that Rocky Maivia debuted in WWE. He would go on to become a megastar. But anyway, yeah, no. So this match, another one of my was kind of the beginning of one of my favorite rivalries too. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that which culminated in a submission match in 1986 at WrestleMania 13. But this is kind of the beginning of that, where Bret, had been like the golden child of the company for so long, and then you got Stone Cold Steve Austin, who's supposed to be this heel, like, or bad guy in regular people terms, but in wrestling terms we call that a heel. So Stone Cold Steve Austin was supposed to be the heel in this situation, but organically he kind of became the good guy or the baby face, because he just disrespected authority, and people related to that. They who doesn't want to like defy authority and beat up the boss and just stick up the middle finger and drink beer and all this other stuff, man. So they kind of grew on Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that was the beginning of Bret Hart's heel turn, which I believe is the best work of his career. If you watch from there, and especially the entire year of 1997 up until November when he left the company with a Montreal Screwjob, uh, you can understand why I love that specific run of Bret Hart, because it was unique in the fact that he was a bad guy in the United States. He hated the United States, hated the values of the American wrestling fans and everything that they stood for. But everywhere else in the world, especially in his home country of Canada, Bret was a hero. Like you couldn't get any more white hot a white hot baby faced and threat at the time in anywhere other than the United States. But the match itself, the Survivor Series match, it was just the beginning of what would be one of the greatest rivalries in WWE of all time. Uh, okay, so that's number three. Number four for me, I'm gonna go with Survivor Series 2011, and I'm gonna go with The Rock and John Cena taking on The Miz and R-Truth. Now, not only was this the third Survivor Series held at Madison Square Garden. The previous two, 96 and 2002, and we'll get to 2002 later because there is a match that I want to talk about on that specific show. But for right now, so Rock and John Cena versus Miz and R-Truth. So the story here was that The Rock and John Cena were gonna be opponents at the next year's WrestleMania. So WrestleMania 28, they were gonna become opponents. Their rivalry had kind of started at the previous year's WrestleMania, Rock and John Cena, because John Cena feels that The Rock kind of cost him the not kind of cost him, but cost him the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 27 when John Cena was facing The Miz, and Rock kind of gave the unlikely assist to John Cena on that one, and cost it cost Cena the WWE Championship. So now, at that year's WrestleMania in Miami, they were going to face off. They had been building this for quite a while. Once in a lifetime, this, that, and the other thing. You'll never see it again. And this ain't. Oh man, it's just and during that match, you had them always trying to upstage each other. If John Cena would do something cool, Rock would try to do something cooler. And it was just great to see them upstage each other on such a big stage like Survivor Series and on a grand stage in Madison Square Garden. And I was there. I had the privilege of being there, so that was pretty cool to see live. So yeah, that's why it's one of my favorite matches. And also credit to Miz and R-Truth, because the R-Truth's heel run back in 2011, absolute magic, man. I wish it had lasted longer, and I wish they had did more with it. But it was good for what it was. Yeah, so that is number four. Number five for me, halfway through, we're gonna go with Survivor Series. Survivor Series. I believe this was 2016. Team Cena versus Team Authority. John Cena, Ryback, Dolph Ziggler, and I forgot who the other two were on John Cena's side, but because this is, even though it was only 7 years ago, man. But yeah, but you also had, and then on the Authority side, led by Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, you had Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Kane, Big Show, and forgot who the fifth member was on that side too. I forgot who the fifth member was on that side, but yeah. So that match. I'll remember that match mostly for the WWE debut of Sting. Now Sting was supposed to, the WWE originally wanted Sting for the Invasion angle, which took place back in 2001, and what do you call it? They wanted Sting for the Invasion angle back in 2001, but they couldn't get him. He decided to sit home and wait and get paid and wait for his WCW contract to run out. And Sting would later go on to wrestle in TNA and stay there for quite a while. And then when he left TNA, he finally got to WWE, and like I said, that night set up a feud between Sting and Triple H, which would culminate in a match at WrestleMania 31, which Triple H got the victory. The NWO and D Generation X, two of the biggest factions of the Monday Night War era, would collide, and Triple H would get the win there after hitting Sting with a pedigree. But anyway, man, yeah. So and Dolph Ziggler put on a hell of a performance in that match. He, all his teammates got eliminated real quick, and he was able to overcome a 4-on-1 advantage, and with the help of Sting, and pull out the victory for his team. So Dolph Ziggler, man, hell of a performance that night, and that's why it's one of my favorite matches. Even though I don't remember all the participants, but still one of my favorite matches, and from Survivor Series. And okay, so the sixth match on my list. Let's like I said, I wanted to go back to Survivor Series 2002 and talk about the first ever Elimination Chamber match, which also took place in Madison Square Garden, and I also got to be there too. So that was pretty cool to see, man. So in that match, you had Triple H, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Jericho, all for the World Heavyweight Championship. And even though the match will be remembered for several things, but most fans like myself will remember it for the ugliest tights in professional wrestling history worn by Shawn Michaels. They were like these kind of doo-doo brown tights, and his boots didn't match his gear. It was just if you want to hear the full story behind that, listen to the Something to Wrestle With podcast with Bruce Pritchard and the Survivor Series 2002 episode to hear the full story of Shawn Michaels' doodle brown tights, and also the fact that Triple H got put in a hospital that night due to injuries he sustained during the match. A crushed larynx due to Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam's leg landing across Triple H's throat when Rob Van Dam tried to jump off the chamber and do a splash. And do no, not yeah. Was it a splash or was it a leg drop? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, no, a splash, and then his Rob Van Dam's leg accidentally landed across Triple H's throat, causing him to suffer a bruised larynx and be in the hospital for a couple of days. Which Triple H would tell you that wasn't a fun experience, but yeah. So and it also I also remember for it being the first Elimination Chamber match. I'm glad I was there to see it live, man. The Elimination Chamber has they have been some great moments inside there, but the first one will always be the most special to me. Um, okay, number seven. Number seven. On my list of Survivor Series matches would be Survivor Series 2019, and the women it was that was the Survivor Series where they were doing the brand split thing, and WWE they were doing the brand split, best of the best Survivor Series matches and stuff. But that was the year that they included NXT in the mix too. So you remember back in 2019 in NXT, you had stars like Adam Cole, Keith Lee, shit, Karrion Kross. It was just a hell of a stacked roster back then. Bianca Belair was still in NXT on the women's side of things, man. So that Survivor Series was most memorable for me, and the men's match. Just having Keith Lee and the WWE superstars face off against the NXT guys, man. It was just awesome. So that's one of my favorite matches on there. Let's see. Okay, that's two more. So I'm gonna have to go with I think this was us. This was 2017 or something like that. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments if you know the correct year and if I'm wrong about this. But Brock Lesnar taking on Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. I mean not for the WWE Championship, just Daniel Bryan was WWE champion and Brock Lesnar was the Universal champion on Raw. So Raw and SmackDown went against each other, and those two delivered in a hell of a match. There were moments where you thought Daniel Bryan was gonna get it, but didn't get it. And But Brock was able to pull out the win that night. Um, Still one of my favorite matches to watch to this day, man. Just that whole era, like 2017 to like 2019. Like I love all the Survivor Series. And The next one I'm gonna go with, I believe they were on the same show. So it was the New Day versus the Shield at Survivor Series, man. So two dominant factions of the era. The New Day, they were like 9-time or 10-time tag team champions at that point, and then would go on to win two more. And then, of course, you had the Shield, pretty much ran through everybody, Roman, John Moxley, Dean Ambrose at the time, and Seth Rollins. Pretty much ran through everybody, and it was cool to see those two factions collide in inter promotional warfare. Um, and Yeah, so like you'll never see that matchup again. So thank God they did it when they did it, because I will probably never get that again. And then my last favorite Survivor Series matchup, man. So this I'm gonna go I'm gonna go with 1997, man. The Montreal Screwjob, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels for the WWF Championship. This was known for so many reasons. It's still talked about to this day. You know, Shawn Michaels. They want. It's just too much of a story to tell. But I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels still, running hot. Running hot. He had already been WWE champion previously, and working off their feud in '96. Where Shawn defeated Bret for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 12. They revisited the feud a couple of months later, and Bret Hart had talked about leaving the company because Vince McMahon had given him this huge, like, 20-year deal worth a shit ton of money, but then rescinded it when he found out that the company couldn't pay him. And Bret was talking about going to WCW, and Vince gave him his blessing and everything like that. But so the tradition is, if you're leaving a company, or you're retiring from the ring, you're supposed to, in this case Bret was leaving the company and going to WCW. You're supposed to drop the championship to whoever your opponent is. If you're a champion, you're supposed to drop the championship. That way everybody knows that you're leaving. But in Bret Hart's case, he didn't want to drop the championship in Montreal, Canada, which is where the Survivor Series took place, and he wanted to drop it the next night. Somewhere where I forgot where they were the night after Survivor Series, but he wanted to come out on TV and just say, "Hey, I'm relinquishing the belt and I'm going, to the rival company." But Vince McMahon didn't want to do that. Vince kind of screws Bret. Shawn Michaels has the sharpshooter on, and before the hold can be fully applied by Shawn Michaels, Vince McMahon tells the timekeeper to ring the bell, and essentially screws Bret out of the WWE Championship. And there's two famous shots from this. There's one of Bret Hart spinning on Vince McMahon, and then him writing into as the show's going off the air, he writes with his hands, in the air letters, WCW. So that's kind of like the last shot of Bret Hart, and the WWE and Bret Hart would be at odds for years. And up until 2010 when they finally buried the hatchet. Where he and Sean finally buried the hatchet and were able to put the whole Montreal screw job behind them. Even at Brett's Hall of Fame induction in 2006, it was still an uncomfortable situation. But glad that everybody was able to bury the hatchet and move on. It was certainly a controversial situation on a controversial night. But anyway, that is good. Those are my top 10 Survivor Series matches. If you're a wrestling fan and you want to tell me your top 10 Survivor Series matches or just Survivor Series memories, let me know in the comments down below. Uh, and we'll talk about it, man. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Classic Chronicles. Like, subscribe, share. Don't forget to hit that notification button so you don't miss a video. And I'll see you guys on the next one. And again, happy Thanksgiving. Peace.